Hi everyone, welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Bryant Francis. I am a contributing editor at Gamasutra.com. Down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see I am joined by three wonderful faces. The first of the faces is Alex Waro. Alex, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Alex Waro, an editor at Gamasutra. Today, like always, I'm stuck in a closet. But through the magic of the internet, we are joined by two fantastic gentlemen. Would you mind telling our audience who you are a piece and maybe what you work on?
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm in order. My name is Carter, and I'm lead game designer on Gigantic.
And I'm Vinod Rams, and I'm a senior concept artist on Gigantic.
Nice.
Nice. And I should have probably mentioned the game we are playing today is, wouldn't you know it, Gigantic. The game is, in fact, gigantic. Maybe? I don't know. Size is relative. This is a strategic hero shooter from the fine folks at Motiga Games. Announced back in 2014. It has been an open beta on PC and Xbox One for a couple months now. It's been around for. It's been out. It's been sort of out for a little. But you all are.
It's been in various stages of beta for actually a while now.
Yeah, but it's leaving beta tomorrow.
Yes, finally.
Yeah.
No longer have that tag slapped on the game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
So as I jump here into, I'm going to start off with a bot match just to warm up for the day.
All right.
I guess my first question is, for both of you, what's it like to finally be leaving beta, especially in this age of early access, where I feel like a lot of developers kind of spend a lot of time in these early game stages.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was never our intention to be in beta for this long. The Gigantic was definitely an interesting road for us development-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, we've been in various stages of beta throughout the course of development. We were early on, we were in alpha, very closed alpha, and then eventually we went to kind of a more open beta, and then back to a closed beta, and then kind of a weekend closed beta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been basically any form of alpha or beta that you can imagine. Gigantic has been in that state at some point. So definitely from that standpoint, it's great to finally be done with all that and just be released. And the game is now live. Anyone can play it on most any platform. So I'm definitely very glad that it's out of that state and it'll be considered released now.
Yeah, it's been awkward having to tell either people our friends in the industry or just our other friends and people that find you online or whatever, and they all ask all these questions about Gigantic because they saw stuff happening for it at all these different stages, and at any given point except for until today, it's been like, well, yeah, you can play it, but you have to do these 15 things to get in and blah blah blah. So it's like, yeah, it's really gratifying to have it out there and everyone's just able to jump in now.
Yep.
Nice.
We get to watch all the painful like everyone learning the game, because we've been sitting with the game for so long that we have to watch everybody learn it. And I bet after literally like a couple weeks, we're going to be watching people on Twitch and stuff just like killing it basically.
Yeah.
So, sort of what struck me as really interesting right before we warmed up and started the stream is that we were talking sort of about the development history of this project. And if you're up for it, I'd love to sort of dig deeper into that, because I know maybe some of our audience knows of Gigantic, but has sort of seen it in the periphery for years now and sort of it's almost become like part of the background hum of like online games and what you might call like hero-centric MOBA-esque shooters. Vinod, you mentioned you have been working on this since the beginning, since maybe the project first started. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that and how this project has changed as you've worked on it?
Sure. So like when I got hired, I actually started as a contract employee because the one artist that was working at Motiga wasn't really super comfortable with character design stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought me in, and I got hired a couple weeks afterwards. But the game was this based on almost like a MMO raid experience, but with PvP. So it was still 5v5, but in the middle of the arena was this giant boss that would attack everybody. And there were objectives. There were still control points, and that's kind of where it all started. And we worked on that for a while. And then one interesting thing is it wasn't really hero based. It was you pick your body type, and then you get custom armor, and it felt more like that RPG, like MMO experience. Pretty soon afterwards, our CEO Chris Chung said, we're going to switch to a hero model where we create distinct characters with full skill sets. And I'm glad he did that, because I prefer creating distinct characters as opposed to like armor sets.
Yeah.
That gets pretty old after a while. And then, we started getting funding through all the kind of startup means that you hear about all the time, venture capital kind of stuff. And pretty soon we hired then our lead designer, James, and he kind of brought the old version of this game, or the idea version, and brought in the 2 Guardians. And at that point, we were already in the hero kind of mode, so he really focused on what the different heroes are like. And so he kind of brought that part of it together. That's when Carter came on board, a couple other designers, and that's like the back of the box version of the development. There's lots of more ups and downs, I'm sure, like I could go into. But yeah, so it started as something similar, but really a lot different. And it's funny because when we were working on this, things like Overwatch and stuff hadn't even been announced. So things have changed a lot. Like, Battleborn and Overwatch didn't exist essentially. Obviously they were working on them, but like we didn't even know anything. And then all of a sudden those get announced. Now we're part of this family of these type of games, so.
Yeah. There's like a lot to unpick there, right? So I want to get into the transition to the 2 Guardians, because that's a really interesting philosophy of design. But could we dig into a little bit more about how, and you don't have to speak for the team as a whole, of course, but just as your own personal experiences as game makers, like what was it like to start on a project so long ago, or not so long ago, depending on what kind of projects you worked on in the past, and like see it sort of be its own thing, and then see a lot of other games that are superficially similar in some ways kind of rise up around it. Does it feel like you were ahead of the pack, or does it feel like you were sort of mired down by unfortunate circumstances and sort of are now like in a whole different thing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we would prefer that those other games didn't come out before us. But at the time, when we were first working on the game, first announced it, it really just wasn't ready to be released anyway. So even if we wanted to, it's not like we could have sped things up and like kind of beat them to market or anything like that. So really, it was just a matter of like seeing what they were doing, and I think on a superficial level, just looking at the game, and it's kind of class-based shooter-esque, and there's a lot of games that kind of fit into that mold right now. But really, what's benefited us with Gigantic is we didn't start out trying to make a hero shooter or make a MOBA or anything like that. It was always our goal was to make a great competitive game. Right. And so it definitely has some elements like structure-wise from the MOBA genre. It definitely, especially depending on which hero you're playing as, it feels like a shooter. But because that was never really our goal, is to kind of pick a genre and make that. I think that helps Gigantic feel different from the other ones once you get your hands on it and actually play it for yourself. It's kind of hard to describe necessarily why it's different. But luckily it's free to play, so hopefully people will just check it out, sink a few hours into it, and then really understand that it's what it brings to the table that's different than the other games.
Yeah, it's funny. We have a pretty dedicated group of players that have been playing with us from the very beginning. There's probably a good 100 players that really have been following this project. Probably more now, but anytime you go on a Twitch stream and there's a bunch of new people that are seeing the Gigantic for the first time, and a bunch of people, they'll just type is this like Overwatch? Is this like an Overwatch clone? Those people, those dedicated fans will jump in and be like, no, this is why it's not, blah, 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 blah. And they'll write a whole paragraph in the Twitch stream. So it's kind of funny because upon first seeing it, you see a hero and you see skills at the bottom that have cooldowns, and you see a little mini map, and you're like, okay, I think I know what this is. But then when you actually play it, there's definitely a different feel. And the fact that it's third person helps a lot too. And the freedom of movement, I think, is huge. The fact that some of the characters can fly, even temporarily, and the jumps that some of them can do, that makes it feel very different as well.
Yeah, I wonder if either you can speak directly to maybe some practical advice you could give to other developers, to other developers dealing with the same issue, because you're not alone, right? I mean, all we hear about when we talk to devs these days is how scared they are of not standing out, of sort of just getting lost in the shuffle. And I remember many times watching the game industry where you will see in a given year a bunch of games that are, again, superficially very similar will come out all at once. There was an RTS boom at one point, there was an FPS boom at one point. So the idea that last year we even wrote a story on what the difference was between all these different, some people called them hero shooters, and it was that confusing for a lot of people in the industry and the marketplace. So I wonder what has your team done that maybe other developers could learn from in terms of making it clear what is important and special about Gigantic.
I think as far as development of the game goes, you can't pay too much attention to what anyone else is doing at the time, because you're never going to know when you start a project. Even a relatively short development cycle, you never know what the landscape is going to be once it releases. And we certainly didn't know that with Gigantic, and it's nothing that we could really predict at the time. There weren't as many games like this, like we talked about, but really it wasn't us trying to hit any sort of window or oh, well, there's not really a game like this right now, so let's make that game and get it out there and kind of take over this piece of the pie. It was always just let's make a great game. And I think that's if you stay true to that, you will compare more favorably to other titles, because it won't be an apples to apples comparison. If you take a game, some companies have the strategy of, we really like this game, so we're going to make our version of this game. And that can work for sure. But that tends to work for the big name companies who have the following, who can get people interested in the game. For especially for a new IP, for an independent studio, really you just have to make your own game and decide what you think makes it special and build it from there without looking at. Obviously, we're all gamers, we play all these games, but without looking too closely at oh, well, they're doing that, so maybe we should change this about our game, or oh, they did that first, so maybe let's not do it. It really, at the end of the day, there's a lot of games out there. You're never going to make something that's completely and totally unique that no one has ever played before. It just doesn't really exist. There's a few exceptions to that probably, but for the most part, you just want to make the game true to your own vision, and as long as you have a solid one and you make a great game, players will find it, and that's really what it boils down to for me.
Yeah.
It's I think you see trends if you're looking at them, but the ones that kind of rise to the top are the ones that are just good games in general, and then you can indent under that. It's a really good game. It's part of this subgenre of games. If you want to start diving deep, and then and then under that, there's another genre of that genre, and it's in there. So it's like, yeah, if we just focus on the actual product, is it fun to play? Is there a lot of back and forth, especially for a competitive game? Like I've been seeing when I play on live more recently, like a lot more back and forth in close games, and that makes me feel like, okay, we got something here because people are learning, and like I said, I'm not like a badass player by any means, so it's like I still have to struggle, and with the fact that like when you're playing this game, like there is a lot of strategy involved, and I personally, like as a gamer, didn't really play any of these games. I haven't touched like a MOBA. I haven't played League of Legends or anything like that. So it was like, for me, we're like, okay, we're going to work on this game. I was kind of focusing on just the character design and the world design and art and stuff like that. And then when we started actually, everyone's playing and builds and testing stuff, I was like, oh, I get why these games are popular. Because they're like crazy, like competitive and fun, and you have to like pay attention to things, and there's like levels of strategy. So this is a whole new thing for me. Really,
well, welcome. They're pretty popular, these games. I think, you talk about making how important it is to make a good game, right, to stand out. And I think that's true. But also I think, there are certain things games can do to be especially striking and catch players' attention and thus avoid getting lost in the shuffle. Two things that stand out to me about Gigantic, which I'm sure I'm not alone in this, are that core mechanic of the two giants, the two beasts or whatever they are, the two guardians, sorry, and then also the art style, which to me is like very, I don't know, fun, colorful, like indie sci-fi, maybe like almost like a saga, almost like a cartoony saga. So I wonder if both of you could maybe speak to the genesis of those two specific aspects of the game, maybe how they evolved over development.
So on the Guardian side, so like Vinod was saying, that was actually one of the few things that kind of carried over from even before my time at Motiga, were these Guardians, because it started out like we were talking about as kind of a different style of competitive game, and so it was really about the evolution of going from that one Guardian to each team has their own Guardian, and incorporating that into the gameplay, which was an ongoing process. It remains an ongoing process for us, trying to kind of strike that balance where these Guardians feel like they're cool and important and involved in the gameplay, but also at the end of the day, it's a PvP game. Players want to fight each other. So there's definitely a delicate balancing act there, like getting the Guardians involved, making them feel special, making them feel cool, making them feel like they're they're the main objective of the game, so they have to feel important, but making them feel more alive, but also still letting players play and fight each other. And at times the Guardians kind of stay out of the way, so they're not just so they feel like they're important, but it's still a PvP game.
Yeah, especially the fact that the amount of damage they do now. Like, I don't know how much you guys have been playing, but like, if you're not doing so well and you're getting chased and you run over to your Guardian, there's pretty good chance that Guardian is just going to destroy the other guy who's following you. And for a while, it wasn't like that. It was like we were really balancing with the Guardians how effective they were, and they would bother you, but you could actually run right past them, and you didn't have to be super scared. Now they feel scary, and I think like that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I've noticed that for sure over here.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was getting at. Like that's an ongoing. It's both a balance thing, and it's kind of a thematic thing. Recently we made some changes to the maps to make them a little bit more compact, but also to put the Guardians in a more prominent position in the map, so that they always feel like they're a part of your team. Is really the goal, is that they kind of feel like that sixth team member. And so, we've been making some efforts to make sure that they're appropriately strong while still allowing some amount of counterplay. For example, if an enemy retreats to their Guardian and they're super low on health, you kind of have that moment of like, oh crap, should I go try to finish him off or should I not? So we don't necessarily want that to be like a binary decision, like, oh, he's near the Guardian, so therefore no. We want it to be a choice, but we want you to heavily consider whether that's a good idea. So yeah.
Nice.
And then for the art style question, it happened there were some like decisions that we kind of decided on early on, but some of it also happened pretty organically. So I had previously been working on pretty realistic games. Right before I came over to Mutiga, I was working at Monolith on what would become Shadows of Mordor.
Right.
Which is, the very gritty and realistic. I was mostly doing a lot of like creature design stuff there. And I always had this weird little tingling sensation in my brain that was saying like, I'm getting a little tired of this, because when I really do my own personal work, it's more in a cartoony thing, because I grew up, reading comics and watching anime and manga and all those kinds of things that really make me happy, and that's what I would draw. That simplified style with exaggerated features and fun kind of characters, and I couldn't really take that into work. I would always get a little squashed down by art directors and stuff, saying like, okay, you got to pull it back a little bit here.
Right.
So when I came over, the other people on the art team, when I came over, it was just we had a modeler, Joe. We have an animator who's still here, Christian, and eventually we had another modeler, Ted. And like, we all kind of just decided, because a bunch of those guys had come over from ArenaNet and they were working on Guild Wars, and which Guild Wars has some style to it, but it's also fairly detailed and realistic in some ways. Has crazy fantasy armor, but the faces are all real, and everybody's got realistic skin texture and all that kind of stuff. So they were kind of tired of that too, and we were just like thinking, hey, if we have the opportunity to do what we want to do now, let's have fun with it and do something stylized. So we started playing with proportions and not getting locked down to like, all the humans look like this and all the male humans look like this and all the female humans look like this. And so we started saying just like, we'll design these as characters. Like, so if there's a human that's supposed to feel a certain way, then we'll make the body feel that way too. You're playing Zandora right now, and I didn't design Zandora. Devin, our other concept artist, did. But she's a tank, or what would you call her? A tanky utility.
Utility tank is what the little word is.
Support,
so
etc.
So it's like we wanted her to feel that way. Like, she looks like she can just jump in and do a lot of damage, but as opposed to like if we designed her in a more realistic way, she would just be maybe some kind of cleric or something that, I don't know, maybe had a mace, or I don't know what I would do, like how I would redesign her in a more realistic way. But the fact that she feels right with all her skills makes sense. As far as like the color design and even the shading kind of thing, we decided when we were looking at some of our favorite games and other things like animation, we didn't want to go full cell shaded. At one point, at different points in production, it looked a lot. You could say it's a cell shaded game essentially, but we also liked the idea of almost like plastic toys, like vinyl toys. You can see like there's a lot of high end vinyl toys out there now, but so it's like a combination of looking at a lot of like animated movies, like Disney movies, but also Miyazaki. We looked at a lot of how Miyazaki movies are art directed, like beautiful backgrounds that have a lot of detail in them and very simple characters that really pop off. So we looked at that, including I remember right around then that Ni no Kuni game that was a Ghibli game basically that was coming out. We didn't push our style as far as they did. Like they'll just have someone will have a whatever clothing item and it'll just be a flat color essentially with one shadow on it. So we're a little bit more complicated than that, but not terribly so. So you can see some of the material things we're working on, like on armor and even HK right there. Like they feel like a plastic toy version of metal, or a plastic toy version of rocks, or a plastic toy version of hair. So we're never gonna try to make anything look like photo real ever. So it's like we've kind of built this box where if we wanted to say this is what ice is, the ice is still within this box of just kind of like animated but also toy-like. And it feels, I always feel like you can reach in and pick up one of our characters and put them on your desk, like that kind of solidity to them. That's kind of where some of that feeling comes into. It also helps that the gameplay is very fast-paced and lots of stuff happening. So the fact that the characters don't have a lot of stuff happening on them, that's helpful. And we're always paying attention to strong silhouettes, so you can see them from far away and figure out who's who. It gets a little more complicated when we get into skins because we have this strong silhouette, and then we got to make sure the skin still has that feeling, even though we're changing the theme and all that kind of stuff. So, but there's been a lot of trial and error, like different character artists at different times, like tried different shaders and a lot of back and forth, sitting behind different artist desks and pointing and no, try this, try that, and eventually we came to if you look, you can probably find them on YouTube. There's lots of old versions of this game that people have put on YouTube, and you can see a pretty big jump in quality. Vision.
Yeah, I was sort of sitting there wondering, like, I was about to ask, like, were you going to talk all about silhouetting and having readability in this kind of game? But clearly, it's a key point of interest when designing new skins. I wonder, you talk about making these to be almost toy-like, and that's the word I was probably searching for. That's a really good description of it. Like, when you're gonna have to forgive me because Brian has played much more than I have. Have you put a lot of effort and thought into I don't want to say lore, but like telling stories around these characters outside of the matches? Is that a key component of your game design process, or not so much?
No, it is. We actually have we come up with a lot of lore, and right now we're peppering it in almost like magic cards, like in the flavor text we call it. So when you click on a character, like if you go to the heroes right now, you'll see that each hero has a couple lines. And another fun thing about the lore is it's not like one guy is telling you all this stuff. It's almost like lore as heard by other people in the world. So you'll click on whatever character, like Gnosos, and it'll talk about something he did, and then it'll have a little quote from like Lord, like Longbottom or something like that. And so and some of our fans have compiled all this into like a big, Google Doc, and you can see like weird contradictions and things like that. And we kind of did that on purpose because we wanted it to feel a little light, like as far as like, I got a sense of this character, but then on this guy's fortune card, like even all the fortune cards have a little bit of a little text there. There's other places we want to put the lore, like quest mode and things like that, which we're talking about. So there's other features that we'll be able to put different lore items, but right now we're peppering it in that way, even though on the back end we do have a lot of stuff written and figured out. I think our general philosophy there is less is more when it comes to lore. We didn't, when we're talking about this early on, we didn't want it to be the case where, each hero has like a 3-page backstory that's just up somewhere that if you care about it, you'll go read it. Otherwise, most people will just completely ignore it.
we felt like we could tell a better story with, like Vinod said, kind of sprinkling in these bits of lore throughout the various pieces of the game and letting players kind of fill in the gaps themselves and put together the pieces for themselves. And we think that will be better as the game evolves as well, as new heroes come in, as new bits of lore come in, and you're like, oh, that's what this was alluding to.
Right.
So you'll see a lot of that happen as we continue to release content.
Yeah. Like if you want to get nerdy, you're like, what are those things on the Ghost Reef map? Like, what are those big mechanical devices? Like, I can be like, oh, I can tell you all about those, but.
All right. Well, then in the course of the stream, I'm gonna pop quiz you on stuff in the background as we go.
While we're waiting for these 20 seconds to pass, so I can resume the slaughter. I wanted to just give a reminder to the chat. If you've got any questions for Carter and Vinod, feel free to toss them out, and we will ask them. There's one question from Rabbit Coon. I think someone's talking in the game.
I know who she is.
That's okay.
Real quick, I was going to ask Vinod. It sounds like you have strong opinions about game art and the direction that game art is generally taking at large companies. Could you sum up in a sentence what you sort of think? I'm going to work on muting this child here, but
Okay, we can't hear him.
Could you describe what you sort of think, what does art directors should think about in order to create games that look not necessarily anything like Gigantic, obviously, because you want to keep your own look, your own thing, and designers should chase their own thing. But what do you think you wish they were working on more, essentially?
I don't know. It's really personal taste. Or like, so I'm going to give you a real answer. I'm not going to give you a non-answer. So it does come down to personal taste, but I also think it comes down to the type of game you're making. To a degree, like, if you were making a game like Last of Us, and you had the art style of Gigantic, you could make it work because the writing would be great and the gameplay would be good and everything. There might be a little disconnect for a lot of people, though. They might be like, I don't know if I can get into this story when, the characters look like they're, like Wind Waker or Katamari or something like that, right? But a good team could actually make that work. There have been great comics made about really heavy subjects, and they have really simplified artwork. So I think it all has to do with the tone and the way people put worlds together. Because you could tell a very dark, gritty story with our art style. You just would have to do it in the right way. I just think for a game like ours, it should feel, our game is just like, it's crazy and it's fun and it's like kind of nuts at times with all the like jump pads and like weird skills. Mozu can teleport across the map and things like that. So we wanted it to feel like this high adventure, like high fantasy game where like there's robots, there's like cities in this world, there's magic towers, there's things that feel very grounded in part of the land, like some of the creatures, but then there's also like airships. Like I always think of like some of the older Final Fantasy games, pre-Final Fantasy VII, that had that same feeling to their worlds. There's other games that we've talked about too that have the same kind of feeling that we want, but when it comes down to like game trends, you do see a lot of like slickness in games now, and some people really like that. But to me, I kind of glaze over when I see that kind of stuff. I like to see stuff that has like it's notable, like, oh wow, they're doing something interesting, and even if it's not my style, at least I'm into it. Like I can respect it. So that's how I kind of feel about it. Like, and if you know any other artists, like artists can be probably the most opinionated people you talk to because they also are making stuff, and when you're making stuff, you have opinions on what you like and what you don't like. So I personally, I don't know if I ever moved on to a different game somewhere down the line. Like, I don't know if I could go back to realism, but who knows? But I really like the style of Gigantic, and I would love to see more games go this direction. I think the stuff that Nintendo is constantly doing feels like they cater their art styles to the type of game they're making, and it's consistently proven to be working because they do hit after hit of like fun game, like what's the new one, Arms,
yeah. That's Splatoon 2 coming out.
Yeah, it's like those games just look like candy. It's just like they look so great, and we've heard similar things for our game, and then that makes us pretty happy that we're in that family of games as opposed to like the hyper real kind of family.
What do you think makes a game look like candy specifically?
That you want to like reach in and grab one of these guys and just pop them in your mouth.
Just take a bite, yeah.
Like candy is like completely engineered to like entice you to pick it up. It's like an unnatural color sometimes. It's like, why would I want to eat something that's bright green? But it's just like, I don't know. Just something about the animation helps too. Like the stuff I work on, the character design, and then it goes to modeling. That takes the character to like a 50% stage. Then the animators take hold of it and make sure those skills that like people like Carter came up with actually feel right. And we have great animators. We've had consistently great animators, and like that's huge. It's like my work kind of ends on a 2D kind of world, right? Like I design the character and I help out with art direction kind of stuff as the character's progressing. But like these guys take it into this 3D space that, just the way the characters move is really important for the game like this. I'm really a big fan of like the old Capcom games, Street Fighter Alpha and things like that. Those games feel so good when you play them. Like, and there's a lot of that in our game too. Like, I love playing, like I play Mozu mostly, and like I just love running around with her and popping in and out with the teleport and stuff like that. And it's really important.
Venny Hedgie would like to know, is it all vector art?
Oh, no. It's not. Definitely not.
I think Venny, specifically that person wants to know if the hero portrait art is all made by the same person, and then is all that hero portrait art vector art, which I don't think is...
Oh, okay. No, we have two really good illustrators here, Lexi and Eric. And they're doing all this front-end stuff that you see. They do basically everything besides the 3D characters. And they're using Photoshop, so it's not vector. But they, the way they paint is very clean and flat, so it feels like that. We wanted to be just a slight departure from the game style. Like it's just a little more angular than the game, just to read as icons.
Right. We talk about feeling like we need to reach our hands in, grab a character, and pop them into our mouth. I wonder if like more game designers should be going to the Sweet Factory and like taking notes. So also I should circle back. Rabbit Coon in chat has a question I think we were thinking about earlier, which is you talk about designing these characters to be almost toy-like. Do you have any plans in the future? Does the team have any plans in the future to try and like turn these into toys?
We gotta wait for the game to be like successful first.
Yeah.
Like we're in this niche spot right now, so coming tomorrow, like that'll be the test, and then we definitely want to make. We've done 3D prints of the characters over the years, and
nice.
They work pretty well as little toys, so we're ready to pull the trigger on that as soon as we get a budget for that kind of thing.
Yeah. So like you're talking about being in right now, at least in this kind of like niche in the game industry, and like we talked earlier about telling story in bits and pieces, little drips and drabs that sort of like paint a world without. Brian, are you doing well in that video game? Is that what you're?
I think I just sort of last standed and snagged a energy that was under attack.
That was intense. I wasn't sure if they were going to kill you in time. That's good though.
Thank you.
All right, this is perfect.
MVP play right there.
Yeah.
This intense last stand is just what I want to ask about, because like the drips and drabs that we've gotten about Gigantic over the years in the game industry at large have been like kind of a roller coaster, right? Like it's been announced and then it's going to come, and then there were layoffs, and then didn't look like it was going to happen, and then Perfect World came in and became the publisher and averted more layoffs, and it just seems like the story of this project could fill a book. So I'm not going to ask you about why there were layoffs or anything. That's not your department, but I want to know, as game makers who have been on this ride, like, what has it been like to work on a project this long with this many presumably ups and downs? Like, what, if you could, what like lessons have you learned that you could give to other developers who might find themselves in a similar situation? No pressure.
Yeah, that's a interesting one. The thing that has been has kind of kept the game going this throughout the ups and downs of this development is really the fact that the team has always believed in the game and that we knew that we were making something special, even if at certain times we were the only ones who really knew what we were doing, what we were making. But the fact is that we knew that we were making something cool and something special. And so that was always kind of the driving factor to keep us going. Like when the money was running out, when the entire team got laid off and people kept coming into work anyway, is just that knowing that, hey, we're, no matter what's going on financially or, development wise or business wise with the company, we still have a cool game. And that, I think as long as you don't lose sight of that can keep you going through some rough development patches.
Yeah. It was also very interesting when all the different stages of like, we need to get funding from, a larger company. And during even that time last year when we were essentially shut down for a month while Chris, our CEO, was trying to figure out if he can, basically get someone to buy us and save it. We would get daily updates from Chris during that time, and he'd be like, okay, well, so-and-so giant company is going to meet with me, and they're going to play the game on Tuesday, and then we'll hear back on Wednesday. They love the game. Now they have these questions, and we'll see how this deal goes. And then the other giant company that once was interested, they also love the game. Like everyone, once they got their hands on it, they were like, "Oh, you guys got something here. Now we just have to work out the deal and all that kind of stuff," which is definitely not my department. I have no idea how that stuff. But that just the fact that some of the trepidations from different investors was always like, how are you going to teach this game to people? Because there's some new mechanics here, and that's why we have that pretty expansive tutorial now that you're forced to play. Like for a while, we had a smaller tutorial and these little videos and stuff, and people still weren't completely. They were just getting thrown into like a shark, like a pool of sharks essentially. So the tutorial is helping a lot. So at least you have to go through that now. So even if you still are kind of in over your head on that first match, you at least remember what those numbers at the top of the screen, the 50 and 40 right now, mean, because that's kind of what you should be watching the entire time. So, it's always gotten good response from people. So that always made us feel like, okay, we're doing something right here. It's just that the ups and downs of just making a new video game, it's kind of like hamstringing us at different points,
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, it's hard enough to make a new IP from scratch, but throw in the fact that we were a new company and an independent company without a huge financial backing ever. It just makes everything challenging because there's always kind of you get an investment for a certain amount of development, and you start nearing the end of that of that road, and you're like, okay, so we're making cool stuff, everything's going pretty well, but the game's not ready to be released yet, so we have to find more. We have to go pitch the game again. So we went through that process several times, which led to some ups and downs in development.
Right.
But ultimately, we're just excited that that Perfect World saw what we were making and was like, yes, we want to get you guys to the finish line. So yeah, we're very grateful that happened and that we can finally, as of tomorrow, be officially released.
Yeah.
And kind of put to rest any development roadblocks and everything. Now it's just about the game itself standing on its own.
Right.
So,
and there hasn't been a lot of like hand holding either. Like besides really good criticism, like hey, make the tutorial be something that people really learn from, and get people into bot matches before they jump into live. Like those are smart decisions that like we always wanted to do, but they really also stress that too. But there hasn't been like, oh, we want you guys to change the character style, or we want you guys to add this specific style of character because of our focus testing or anything like that. So that's been creatively, the project hasn't changed in that way. Like we all kind of figure out what we're going to do next as a team.
Yeah.
And that feels right. Like that feels like feels like a place that I want to keep working at essentially. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no matter what happens after it launches, like it's always just nice to see a game come out because game development is real hard and it takes a lot to make a game.
Yeah, there was a time there where we were kind of looking around like, is this game really gonna come this far and not make it to the home stretch?
Yeah.
So that was definitely those were darker days for us.
Yeah.
But luckily we got through that, and so yeah, it's kind of a sense of relief and also excitement because with a free-to-play live service game like ours, like the finish line is also the starting line. Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Don't die, Brian.
No,
I was on the hunt.
Oh.
Nice. Well, your team distracted him, and that was good. Good play there.
There has been some good chat in the chat that I think we should just bring up on the stream, which is that a little bit back. Let me see here. No, I'm sorry. It was a while ago. Malchior asks Carter and Vin, how long on average is the process between a completed prototype character from modeling to animation to release?
That's a good question. So, very start to finish in terms of like, we decide that we are gonna start a new hero to hero is essentially done and ready to be released. That could be for us anywhere between the 4 to 6 month range. Usually in the past it's been a little bit on the longer side. Now that we've gotten some, now that we've made more characters, we've been able to cut that down a little bit, but it's still a pretty long process.
Yeah.
There are certain things that you just can't speed up. Prototyping and
slow artists.
Yeah, just the iteration that our characters need in order to maintain the quality, both visually as well as gameplay wise. Like that's just going to take time no matter what. So yeah, it's about a 4 to 6 month process. So right now we have I think about 10 different prototype heroes in various stages of development that we're working on and actually playing internally. So some of them are just started. They're we usually grab a hero, different model and set of animations from a different hero and slap like some default texture on them so that they look different. And maybe scale them weirdly so that they look really ugly and the artists hate them and want them to release them as soon as possible so that we can get a good real temporary mesh in there. But yeah, we're pretty quick about starting the process in terms of just grabbing from wherever we can and piecing together something just so that we can get a start on the skills and everything. And then once we're happy with like, here's the general direction of the hero, here's generally the kit that it's going to be. Doesn't mean one of the skills won't change along the way, but just far enough that we can kind of say like, okay, this is good to do real concepting on.
Right.
And that's when the process really kicks off.
Yeah. And this doesn't happen early on, there was a lot of like, we just looked, some of the designers would just look at some of the random sketches that we were producing and be like, oh, that looks like a cool character. I'm going to actually build it off of this drawing.
Yeah.
Lately, we've been a little bit more streamlined, and these guys do the prototyping process first, and then it comes to us. But I don't know. I like both versions where sometimes you just see something visual, and it gives you an idea of like, ooh, I can base the whole skill set off of that.
Yeah.
Some of the earlier heroes started that way, actually.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's definitely interesting. It's a very kind of dynamic process when it comes to making heroes. Like Vinod said, it starts different ways. It can start with a sketch. It can start with a set of skills. It can start with a general theme. But where was I going with that? The interesting part is that it's not always the same. And sometimes, for example, when we're going to concept a hero, it can be like the first drawing is like, yes, that's a hero. Like, that's it. Start making it.
Right.
And sometimes, like, it can be like 50 pages long of like, this one, what about this one?
Right.
I kind of like this one, but I kind of like that other one. And, so it's just interesting how it works out. It's kind of very organic for us. But ultimately, I think we always arrive on something cool.
Yeah.
So
there's some funny stories of like, so the cute, like, big fluffy Yeti character, he was a kit that was from one of our environment artists, Tomas. He's like our best studio player. Like, he's really good at the game, so he has a lot of ideas for characters. And he had an idea for like an ice-based melee character, like tank character. And so he wrote up this whole thing, put it up on our internal website. And I remember he put an image of the Lich King from World of Warcraft. So this is like,
that was me.
Oh, that was you? Okay, so Carter put that image up there. And I remember we were looking at the skills and like, we were like, okay, this is a character that's we're going to make this character. And so then, the concept team, me and Devin at that point, were just throwing up some ideas, and Devin put up something. And then I remember just having a fun idea for this character, and I put up this little fluff ball kind of character, and I drew, it was really like simple sketch. And that was kind of the end of that process. It was, okay, we're making that.
Yeah.
So, and then the other funny story that's similar to that is Taito, the owl, the red-caped guy with the owl mask. Like, Taito was the art test from Devin, the other concept artist. Like, we had an art test. So you draw concept a character based on this really generic description, and that was what he came up with. It was like an older version. He got refined a little bit more, but that was like, okay. Well, first of all, you're hired, and second of all, we're going to make this guy because Taito is super cool. So those are a couple examples of like weird, like kind of fun ways characters got developed. And then there's more standard ways where we got a skill set from the designers and just iterate. There's like 30 drawings, and then we all sit in a meeting room and be like, okay, I like that one. I don't know, I like that one, and we kind of go that way. But we don't have one person. We don't have that one art director saying, we're making number 3 there, so you guys start working on it. We technically now have an art director, Christian, but he has maintained like that feeling, so he doesn't get involved on like, we're going with that one on that page. He's more like looking at overall stuff, like making sure the HUD feels right and talking to the UI guys, and overall stuff he's paying attention to. But day-to-day stuff we're running as we always run, which is very collaborative as a team.
Yeah, that's crazy to hear that Taito was born out of an art test, given
Yeah.
that A, I thought it was an owl man, not a man in an owl mask, and B, he's like one of the faces of this game,
Yeah.
publicly speaking.
And and
Yeah.
we've even kept it's like we don't know. We've kept it a mystery. Is it a he? Is it a she? Is it a
Sorry.
creature under there? Like we don't know. We've kept that like completely like mysterious.
My bad. I didn't mean to misgender they.
Oh, no,
them.
it doesn't matter.
Brian, I'm sorry to have chatted so much this time around. Are there any burning questions that you still want to ask as we wrap this up?
I guess we should do our due diligence. And Carter, did you expect this game to go free to play? And when you found out, what was sort of your mindset for approaching some of these free to play systems?
Yeah, so the game from the start has always been free to play. Luckily, we didn't have to kind of shift and retrofit anything.
Mm-hmm.
It was free to play from the start, which helped us inform some decisions on the design side. But really, when it comes to free to play, the goals are to make a game that feels like whether you're playing it free or whether you pay for a pack, that it's fun either way. So that's where the kind of design side of it comes in, is like, okay, even though if you're a free-to-play player, you start with a limited subset of heroes, is it still fun to like kind of grind through and unlock the rest of them? Because that's a big part of the game if you're playing it for free. And I'm personally playing it free on my account, even though I have some codes that I haven't even used for a Founders Pack, just because I want to experience the free-to-play experience. So it's about making sure that process is fun, as well as, there's some people who don't want to grind. They just want to feel like they're buying the game, and giving that option to them as well. So yeah, I mean, the fact that we made the decision from the beginning definitely helped. And I think it's just going to be an ongoing effort to make sure that we're giving people enough avenues to pay for stuff that's cool and that they want, but they don't feel like that they're obligated to.
Right.
Cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun. That's the first time the game actually slows. I would love, as always, every time we bring a guest on, I'm always just so excited because I love talking about game development, and I want to talk for like another hour, but we've only got the 1 hour. So I will begin the closing ceremonies as I just mess around with practice mode here with the aforementioned cuddly panda bear character.
It's really cute.
Not really panda bear though.
Oh, he's like a Yeti. Like he's based originally off of. I have guinea pigs at home.
Yeah.
We have a little fat little fluffy potato, and started from there, and then developed him into like a frost kind of Yeti child.
Oh, he's a frost potato guinea pig Yeti.
Yep.
I love that. Paco, that's the name. Paco. Thank you, chat, for reminding me. Yeah, so this has been the Gamasutra Twitch channel. I know many people who are here today have probably just been super big fans of the Motiga team and the game they put out, but we'd like to encourage you to follow this channel because we are talking to a lot of other game designers about their work all the time, and if there's a game you like and you want to talk to the developers about it, or if you just want to learn more about the art and business of making games, we invite you to follow us and join us on our adventure to learn more about the continually changing world of game design. I speak and run on sentences. But yeah, if you can click follow. Trying to think of anything else. We're going to be back. The only thing, we're actually going to be back in about an hour to stream the Destiny 2 beta. So if you want to take a look at that, be sure to join us. And then Carter and Vinod, if there's anywhere they want to direct their very specific questions, where should they go? I'm sure you have a community section for this.
Yeah, we have a pretty active Reddit community, the Go Gigantic Reddit. A lot of the developers jump on there and answer questions, especially if they're really, kind of directed at specific things. And I don't know, I have a website.
Let's hear it.
I have a Tumblr account for my artwork and stuff, so you can always find me on there. It's just my Vinod Rams.tumblr or whatever. So, I don't know, Carter, do you have a Tumblr?
I do not have a Tumblr.
You don't post your fan art on Tumblr?
But I will say, for anyone who's not already aware, Gigantic releases on Steam tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's free to play. So whether you're playing it on PC, Xbox, it's officially released tomorrow. There'll be a new patch. Check it out.
Yeah.
Go to gogigantic.com.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't play these kinds of games before, so the fact that I love this game, it's like super fun to play. And when you get a good match, it feels like a big event is happening.
Both matches that we were playing today felt awesome. Like I cannot
Yeah,
stress
those
enough
were
how
close
like
matches. I was trying to concentrate on talking, but mostly I was just watching you play. So.
yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. Have a gigantic Wednesday.